Okay, this section we're going to look at will have quite a bit of information from it. It'll talk about the Egyptian achievements. Um, the first thing you need to know is their writing system was called hieroglyphics. Um, it was picture writing. It was written on papyrus, which is a long-lasting paper-like material, and the scribes wrote on them using brushes and ink. Now, the way that they are able to understand what um, the hieroglyphics mean was years later the Rosetta Stone was found, and it had a form of hieroglyphics on it, a later form of Egyptian, and then Greek writing, and people were able to decipher everything from it, and they were able to translate the hieroglyphics. Um, so the Egyptians also created magnificent temples and tombs and works of art. They believed the temples were the home of the god. They often made gifts for the gods and asked them for favors. They would build things such as the Sphinx, um, an obelisk, which is a tall four-sided pillar, and actually the largest obelisk in the world is the Washington Monument. They would paint the walls and columns and would also use hieroglyphics on those things. They also filled the art with tombs, colorful, lively scenes. They showed history, historical events, people living everyday life, religious events. And it was always distinct because they wouldn't do it in 3D. It was always the people's heads and legs are always seen from the side, and upper bodies are shown straight on. In the tombs, they would have arts and hieroglyphics, statues and carvings and jewelries and all the riches of the people, and they would take those with them. If we go into and we look at some of these pictures, you can see this is how they would build some of the different pyramids, and then they would smooth the sides. This one is like a pyramid for a king, and then the smaller ones are the ones for his queen. As we can see what the Sphinx looked like, a Sphinx was a different animal that to get past it you would have to form riddles, but they would put the Sphinx body, but they would usually put the Pharaoh's head on that. Here's the inside of some of these temples. We can see some of these pillars decorated with art and hieroglyphics, and you can see how the body was always to the side. Legs always facing one way, head always facing one way. They would even put two eyes on this side of the head. No depth to it whatsoever, always 2D. These are some rulers of Kush. We'll talk about them in just a second. We looked at that map. Here's some different areas that the Egyptians ended up trading with. They go down into Kush. They go over to Arabia, into Asia, and on up to Greece. And the area we're going to talk about next here in Nubia and Kush is what comes to attacks Egypt and ends the Egyptian empire. Some different things. This shows you again the social classes. The first part was the pharaohs at the top, then the nobles or the rich and the priests, and then the scribes and people, the crafts people, and then down here were the farmers and servants, and below them were the slaves. This is Queen Hatshepsut. She could not grow the pharaoh's beard, so she made a beard out of gold that was attached to her headdress so she could have the same pharaoh beard that everyone had. Again, she is important because she was the first female pharaoh. Here is some of the hieroglyphics. You can see the picture writing, see some of the different things that it meant. And again, this is the Kush Trade Network. We'll stop on this one, and then I'll go into the last section, section 5,